same thing. I'd like to address that, Be'ezer Hashem, at the end. Okay? Now, the emes is that a lot of the rayas that were brought are circumstantial evidence. You found a lot of shells in between Silma Ditzar and Haifa. Okay. Very good. In the historic documentation, the murex is documented as a snail that produced a purple dye. Primarily, a purple dye. It was used for purple. Purple was a very chashuv color. It was used for royalty. And it's very possible that the murex was used for purple. There was a very healthy industry of dyeing at the time. Now, why haven't we found excavations of chilazin? Well, if the chilazin is a telas, if it's a worm, if it's a slug, then what would you find? Chilazin has to have a shell. That's incorrect. Chilazin could have a shell. Chilazin is a generic term, just like bird, oif in the Torah. Doesn't mean a chicken. A chicken is a type of bird. If it would say somewhere that something is an oif, it wouldn't have to look like a chicken. It could look like a pigeon, it could look like a crow, it could look like a bat, it could look like many types of oifos. The term chilazin is a generic term. It's found in the Yavitz to refer to a creature with two shells, which is basically like a clam. It's found that it refers to a snail. And it's also found many Rishonim refer to telas. So maybe chilazin just means telas. And it was a fish-like sea slug. So chilazin, just because Psikta of Kahana describes it says that chilazin has a shell that grows with it, that's true. Chilazin is a generic term, just like a oif has wings. So chilazin could have a shell. I'm sorry? Lav dafka the chilazin at Techeles. Right? There are subspecies. And therefore the raya from the Psikta of Kahana is a shachar raya. The raya from the archaeological digs, there's circumstantial evidence. Maybe it was a slug, and who says we would have found? Why wasn't it documented? Well, if they were using kosher chilazin for Techeles, and especially if it was so not matzui to the point where it was dam of yikarin, so okay, so maybe the goyim didn't have, maybe it wasn't so matzui. Maybe it was something that was used primarily by Yidden. Yeah, maybe some people used it for begadim, but typically it was used for tzitzis. It wasn't it could be it wasn't such a large industry, and maybe that's why they're not finding anything. Maybe that's why it's not documented. The name purpura, Rabbi Shavai brings in a tshuva that the name purpura is found in Midrashim to refer to a royal garment. And it's very possible that purpura, when referring to Techeles and purple, grada we find in the ancient writings, purpura being used interchangeably for purple and blue. And it's very possible it was just a term for royal garments. And therefore, just because the Rav Yos says purpura and purpurine doesn't mean anything, because maybe it just means something that produces the royal garment, royal color. Again, if there was something that was 100% conclusive, so fine. But these are all hasharas. The gezerah of the Romans on the murex, I will say that Rashi was ignored. Rashi in Sanhedrin Yud Beis says that the gezerah that Rabbi was referring to by Nesher was gezeras parsiyim, not gezeras raimi. So for anybody to connect the gezeras raimi to the Gemara in Sanhedrin is misleading. Now, there is a Maratzchius who says Nesher refers to raimi, but the Maratzchius learns the Gemara totally different, and he learns the Gemara wasn't even talking about Techeles. So the Maratzchius is out. I think there's one other pshat in Afraim who say maybe the Gemara is referring to a gezeras raimi. Could be it's a Ben Yehoyada. We'll get to the Ben Yehoyada in a moment. But Al Kapanim, Rashi says it's gezeras parsiyim, so to connect the Gemara to murex, no shaykhs. The fact that the Kala Ilan, the Gemara says there's Kala Ilan and there's Techeles. Well, Chayra, it doesn't make any sense. If there was a third option, Chazal should have said it. If there was Kala Ilan's indigos, if murex is blue, why did Chazal? There's a Kesef Mishnah who says, in Perek Beis Mehilchas Tzitzis, he says, B'derech Efshir to be Miyashiv Rambam, and maybe Kala Ilan is a term that refers to all blue that is puzzle. It's a lashon of a Kesef Mishnah, not me. And therefore, maybe when the Gemara says Kala Ilan, the Gemara is referring to murex trunculus, not a riot. Not only that, it could be the Gemara Chazal didn't warn about murex trunculus because maybe it was so expensive. It was extremely expensive. If somebody's going to do a fake, why are you going to take murex? Why don't you just take indigo? It wasn't matzui for somebody to fake it was a very expensive thing. Even now, murex trunculus is expensive. And therefore, the raya for the Gemara is difficult. The next raya, I think, was literally achiza seinayim. They say they bring a raya from the Gemara. Murex was expensive. Chilazim, the Gemara says dam of yikarim. Murex was expensive because of the process, because of the amount of dye it produced. The Gemara says Techeles was dam of yikarim. Rashi says the reason is because it was ayla echel l'shiv mishanim. So the dam of yikarim and the Gemara and the dam of yikarim of the ancient writings on murex have nothing to do with each other. the merbat fabric that they found traces of dibromo indigo. Okay, maybe it was from the murex. It wasn't, they didn't find tzitzis. They found a piece of cloth. Maybe it was from a royal garment. Maybe, we can hypothesize a whole night. Maybe it was done in a vat that was previously used for purple, just like you produce a chocolate bar in a nut factory, and the thing that you had to run for nuts, you'll have traces of nuts. There were traces of dibromo indigo. Who says that it was anything? Maybe it was a blue that was indigo with traces of dibromo indigo because they used it for purple before. And the raya from the Gemara Sfunei Tmunei Chel, in my humble opinion, is also Achizas Einayim. To bring a raya from Sfunei Tmunei Chel and to say that that's a description of the chilazon because it's hidden in the sand, and that's the Techeles Sfunei, that's called ignoring Rashi. Rashi says Sfunei is a lashon of chashivas because it was very chashuv, because it was very expensive. Rashi could have typed Sfunei that it's hidden under the sand, and Rashi didn't. And to me, that's a raya again that Rashi didn't understand Sfunei like that. L'chayra, again, all the rayas have tshuvas. Now, as to the question, the reshonim didn't have murex. Al zeh ani omer. Our Messiah in Klal Yisrael is that we live based on reshonim. The reshonim didn't have somebody. Somebody responded to me, listen, it's not the reshonim's fault. They didn't have it. I'll fill in the blanks. It's not the Rishonim's fault that they made a mistake. They didn't have it. We have a klal. Im harishonim k'malachim, anu kibnei adam. Im harishonim kibnei adam, anu k'chamerim. What is the description of a human being? Humans make mistakes. Im harishonim kibnei adam, if we approach Rishonim as bnei adam, and we're willing to sit there and say Rishonim made mistakes, and that's our approach to halacha, anu kachamoyrim. The Goyin writes, or the Goyin is said over of Henkin writes, b'shem the Goyin. Our Messiah in Torah has stayed strong because we accept Rishonim kimalachim, and we are not willing to accept the fact that Rishonim make mistakes and Chazal make mistakes. And that's how the Messiah of Torah has survived throughout thousands of years in Klal Yisrael. The moment we are ready to get up and say 17 Rishonim missed the boat, Chalila v'chas, not one Rishon stems with the murex. 17 Rishonim missed it because it's not their fault. Rishonim kibnei adam. What can happen to the Messiah of Torah? We're smarter than the Rishonim. We know more. We know better. Based on what? On hasharas. I don't understand it. I don't understand the approach. Loi kach kibalti me rabosai. I remember there was a bacher in Philadelphia who once said, "Berabim, the ksais." He bederach a question. He said, "It would seem that the ksais missed the boat." And one of the Rosh Yeshiva heard, and he called a shmuz for that night. It was a shmuz. I will never forget this shmuz. I was not in yeshiva at the time. There's a tape of it. The yeshiva cried throughout the entire shmuz. How could somebody say on the ksais who was an akron that the ksais missed the boat? Im harishonim k'malachim anu kibnei adam. Then we can survive as bnei adam. Im harishonim kibnei adam. We're willing to grant them they're bigger than us. They're greater than us. They were a different mahus. We're kechamoyrim. They're kibnei adam anu kechamoyrim. I'm not willing to accept that 17 Rishonim made mistakes. I'm willing to accept the machlokes Rishonim. Find a Rishon and paskin like the Rishon. That's Lanias Daiti, the correct approach to halacha. What do you have to lose? And with this we'll end Rabbi saying. What do you have to lose? So I'd like to say four Mekayros and Chazal, four Mekayros that I'm aware of, that there's potentially what to lose. Number one, again, the Gemara says, if you put on misafik, you're not sure, lo yehei ela kol ha'ilon. Fine, that's fear. If you have a legitimate suffix, put it on. But, especially if it's more noita that it's wrong, here are four reasons that you have to lose. There's a Sefer B'Samim Rosh. Simon Reish Memdal. The B'Samim Rosh was printed in the 1800s, or 1700s really. It was miyuchas to the Rosh. The Gedolei Achrayim at the time had many questions on the Tshuvas B'Samim Rosh. They felt there were a lot of forged tshuvas. However, at the same time, the same Gedolim that call it by derogatory names, the Chassam Sofer calls it Kizvei HaRosh, the lies of the Rosh. The Chassam Sofer quotes certain tshuvas when he felt that there was no pickbook on that specific tshuva. The accepted opinion amongst the Gedolei Achrayim seems to be that B'Samim Rosh has mostly authentic tshuvas, besides for the one that have been proven to be false, or that there are serious doubts. In Siman Reish Mem Daled in Besamim Reish, he was asked by a Yid who said he found a dog that was like Techeles. And he wanted to know, I'll put it on Misafik. Maybe it's Techeles, and even if not, I'll put it on Zeicher with Techeles. It's very nice. And the Rosh writes back, the Besamim Reish writes, he says, his lashon is, we need a Messiah, ish, mipi ish, on the Techeles. That's what he writes. He says it's impossible to get the perfect color, assuming that you have to get a certain type of color, but this is what the Besamim Reish writes. And he says, without a Messiah, you can't produce Techeles. Besamim Reish. Then he says, I put it on maybe Zeicher with Techeles. He says, absolutely not. The Gemara says, if you have no esrog, don't take a pomegranate and say, instead of an esrog. Why? Shema yoim shema dilma asla misrach. Years down the line, they're going to say, that's an esrog. Zok the Rosh, dilma yoimu b'neinu zehu Techeles. And therefore, if it's not Techeles, don't put it on. That's reason number one. Reason number two, Rabbi Yosef writes, and it's Kapaskin by the Mechaber al Chapanim Shulchan Aruch, that there's a didn't have min kanaf. Min kanaf means that the tzitzis have to be the color of your beged. Now, min kanaf, the tzitzis have to be the color of your beged. That means that if you have a white beged, the tzitzis should be white. Zok Rabbi Yosef, if it's Techeles is the exception to the rule. But if it's not Techeles, you're losing out. It's a lechatchila. Ladina, we pass in lechatchila, you're supposed to be makam kanaf. So Rabbi Yosef, you're losing lechatchila. So the proponents of murex say, the Rabbi Yosef is not pashut, because there are achrayim who seem to say that the din of min kanaf only applies to the strings that aren't supposed to be Techeles. That's fine. I'm willing to accept that maybe Rabbi Yosef's psak is not accepted across the board. You ask me what I have to lose. If Rabbi Yosef holds I'm losing, I have what to lose. That's the bottom line. That's number two. Number three, Rabbi Shaya Perlel, in his Hagoyes on the Rajina's Sefer Svunei Tmunei Chayil, he writes, and again, it's a mechudesh interpretation. Rabbi Shaya Perlel was from the Gedolei Hador in Europe in the 1800s. He was a tremendous goyim. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said on his Sefer that you have to stay inside a house for 10 years without coming out to write as a Sefer. Rabbi Shaya Perlel quotes a psik of Kahana that says that if you misrepresent the mitzvah of tefillin or tzitzis, you produce misrepresentations of it, you're over on the lav of loy sisa. It's a chiddush nikataych in the psik of Kahana. I will accept that. But Rabbi Shaya Perlel holds that you're being over a lav. And again, what do you have to lose? If I were risking, if in my opinion, if according to the reshonim there's a 0% chance that it's Techeles, and according to these achrayim there's a small chance that I have what to lose, that's called having what to lose, I think. In business, I think that's how you'd approach it. And then the fourth thing that you have to lose is Al-Pi Kabbalah, and I don't claim to understand Kabbalah, but I will repeat it, because I saw it brought down. Rav Shlomo Miller from Toronto quotes this. The Gemara in Bab Metzia Daf Samachal from Adei says, Osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lipara Mimi Shetayla Kol Ilam Bebigdei V'Omer Techeles. God is going to punish one who puts Kol Ilan in his beged and says that it's Techeles. Simply understood, the Gemara means that somebody who tricks people and says, I have Techeles, you're tricking people. Frek the Ben Ish Chai. He says, why does the Gemara only say it on Kol Ilan? Why did the Gemara say it on mezuzah? Somebody puts up a hollow mezuzah tube. Somebody puts on a hollow bottom of tefillin. Why did the Gemara say osher HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lipar? So the Ben Ish Chai writes Al-Pi Kabbalah. He says, the Arizal says that Techeles was nignaz until the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt. Zok the Ben Ish Chai. Why? He says the reason is because the color of Techeles, the color blue, is a color sheyesh loy achiza l'sitra achra. These are his words. The sitra achra, we'll call it the dark side, has an achiza in the color blue. He says the only exception to that is Techeles. Techeles is so kaddish, zel uma zebra ali. So somebody puts color Elon in his beged. You put a color in your beged, blue in your beged, that's not Techeles. He says you're moisef koyach b'sitra achra. So I don't know what it means. I wouldn't take the risk. Those are four yesaitis as to what you could potentially have what to lose. I don't need to build such a strong case what you have to lose. I think what you have to lose is that the Rishonim are clear that they don't hold it Techeles. I know that the Gedolim overwhelmingly rejected the Rajina's Techeles before Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Halevi Herzog proved that it was a synthetic blue, a Prussian blue. The Beis Halevi rejected it. Rabbi Yitzchak Chon inspected would not be makabel it, refused to endorse it. I'm sorry? The Marshan put it on B'tzina. He's the only one. Marshan put it on B'tzina. And most of the Gedolim did not accept it. The Aruch HaShulchan writes in Hilchos Tzitzis Siman Tes, Zev man Rav shal ya'echad shehispar shemotza haTcheles V'loy hoya loy shoymeya migedoyle Yisrael u'miklal Yisrael v'nizbatel hadover ad ki yavay goyel tzedek b'mher Rabbi Yomeinu. As I write the Aruch HaShulchan. I know our Techeles, Rabbi Yosef was against it. Rabbi Chaim is emphatically against it. Chaim says nignaz means nignaz. It was hidden. He takes the midrashim, or a midrashim that say nignaz, he takes them kipshutai. I know that there was a rumor that Rosh Shmuel had put on Techeles 10 years ago. It was a very, very reliable leak, if you will. And I went to Rosh Shmuel. He was in town for a chasana. And I asked him, I said, Rosh Hashiva, I heard the Rosh Hashiva put on Techeles. B'tzina. He was sitting at a table, front table, and he looks at me, and he says, Chas v'shalom. Then, I said, okay, fine. So he says, no, 1 minute. He grabs my arm, and he says, I want to show you something. He pulls up his frock, takes out his tzitzis. Rosh Shmuel wears his tzitzis in. He pulls out his tzitzis, and he says, does this look blue to you? I had a taiva to say yes, just to see what happened. And then he says, so I said no. And then he says, okay, 1 minute. He folds up his bag and he shows me his undershirt. He says, is there anything here? See any other begadim? I said no. So he says, this way nobody should be able to say that I showed you one and I was wearing another. I asked Rosh Shmuel, why? Why so strong? And Rosh Shiva told me, he said, Geba Kukan Aruch HaShulchan. The Lashon Aruch HaShulchan again. Lehoya loy shemeya under Rashina, who was a goyin oilam, the Rashina. He was a goyin oilam. He was a goyin oilam, the Rashina, from the Gedolei Ador Mamish. Abrinu, the Gedolei were Makabel, Klal Yisrael Makabel. I think the same can be said. The Iker on our Techeles are Yechidim who wore it or wear a Petzina. It's true. The overwhelming majority of the Gedolei and Klal Yisrael have not accepted it. And again, I think Al Zeh Yesh Lahamlitz Lashon Aruch HaShulchan. Lehoya loy shemeya migedoyle Yisrael v'nizbatel hadover ad ki yavay goyel tzedek b'mher Rabbi Yomeinu. Rabbi Isai, again a reminder, next week is the last year of the season. We have an email list in the back. If you'd like to just get the information on the August shiurim, you can sign your name up. There are no solicitations, to my knowledge, sent out on the emails. If they are, you can let me know.
That this gives you future. You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.